Hi guys. So this is going to be an interview on my side of the Channel River, I guess. And I'm here today with the wonderful Miss Charlie from Charlie Says Go.
Hello.
And all of her links are down below if you don't know where she is. I'm sure you do, but just in case, all links should be down below as long as my memory has not completely failed me, which is a possibility. And I'll be like, oh no, like half an hour later and then go and do it. So they'll be on there at some point. So today we're going to talk about kind of like spiritual burnout and like what happens when you're feeling like spiritually blocked and how that feels and what that looks like and that it happens to everybody. And then we're going to talk through some ideas on how to rebalance yourself. I think we're all good for that.
Yeah,
Breathe.
let's do it.
I feel like I haven't stopped today. So video is solidly like, whew, right. Okay. So do you want to talk about what you feel spiritual burnout is, and then we can go from there?
Yeah, I think it's fitting for me because that's definitely I guess I wouldn't consider myself in a burnout just because right now I'm kind of consciously choosing to step away from things.
Mm-hmm.
Those of you who may be watching who've watched my channel, you're probably like, oh wow, she hasn't been around for a while, because I don't think I've made a video for either at least a year or maybe just under a year. It's been a while. And I've also kind of stepped away from my practice for about that long. And for me, the burnout side, I think, is when you get stuck in a rut, like things are going really well, but then all of a sudden you just kind of you're having trouble finding new, like you have a desire to try new things, experience new things, explore new ideas, but you are almost back at that kind of beginner stage, like where you were when you first started.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't really know, like, oh, I've tried that, I've read about that, I don't like that. So it's a little bit different than what I'm experiencing now myself, but I've definitely been there where you just sort of I don't know, I guess you maybe lose interest or motivation. You feel kind of like
Like the
just sort of,
passion's died off a little bit.
Exactly. The passion's died off a bit. So yeah, but like I said, for me, I'd say the passion's died off a bit for me as well, but it's different than other times that I've experienced a lull, so to speak, in my practice, in that it's lasted longer than any other lull.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, like, I know that eventually I'll get back to my practice, but at this point in time and for the last few months, like, I've had no desire to. Like, I haven't had the desire to. So what about for you? What is it for you?
Well, it's interesting because it makes me wonder if there is like a qualifiable or quantifiable difference between when you're like burning out and when it's like what people call like a long dark night of the soul, which you hear about in terms of spiritual path workings, and that's when people, mind you, that's a little bit more despair orientated. I think like the long dark night of the soul is when you're kind of giving up on everything and nothing seems to work and you're getting very frustrated with
I was going through that.
So I think for me it's always cyclic. I think there's always periods where you feel like your magic is on, and then sometimes you just feel like I don't want to be anywhere near it right now, or it kind of manifests itself, but it's not how it usually is, or it's not what people have told you a spiritual path is, which is problematic in and of itself.
Right.
Because you suddenly look back and you think, oh, I have been doing spiritual or magical things. It's just not like everybody says it would look like. It's not spells at the altar or whatever. It's inner work. It's getting back in touch with who you are. It's long walks and like grounding yourself outside. It's appreciating things in life. And I think sometimes people at large get really, really obsessed with the aesthetic of what witchcraft and spirituality looks like, and we forget to talk about the things that are quote unquote mundane, but actually they're not. They're a big part of who we are.
Right.
So
yeah,
there's definitely periods of that.
Yeah. And I think, I can see that because we just last month we bought first house, which I'm really excited about. And the family who lived here before, it's only been owned by one family, and it was they lived here for 60 years. husband, wife, they had 4 kids. And there are some little flower beds and like a garden out back. And I've always wanted a garden, but they're a lot of work and I kind of have a brown thumb. But I've been getting outside and like weeding the garden that she started and kind of trying to learn a little bit about that. So those are those are things that are tied into what my spiritual practice was at one point. But now I'm kind of experiencing them from a different vantage point, less spiritual, I suppose, and more, I don't know, it is spiritual, but it's not like in your face, this is my spiritual practice. It's
less deliberate, more organic, that kind of thing.
Yeah, which is good wording for a garden.
There you go, Virgos, all the words.
I'm sorry, my birds are in the corner and they are going to be screaming because they know that I'm in here. So sorry if you can, yeah.
Well, if you can hear her birds and you can hear my neighbors, guys, I apologize. You can hear both got noise going on in the background. But from like the gardening perspective and things like that, I think it's interesting because it's kind of like a flip of perspective for me. And I find those moments can actually be really rewarding and really enriching, that it doesn't have to be like full on spirituality to move you in certain ways and teach you things and get you back in tune with yourself, which is parts of why we do spirituality in the first place, to get like back in harmony with the world around us and ourselves as part of that and part of the ecosystem. So I think it's interesting that there is this kind of divide in popular spiritual opinion, I guess, about what is spiritual and what is not spiritual, and that to me doesn't make sense. Like, it's all got undertones of spirituality in it. It's just how we're perceiving it. So
you said something that made me wonder. You said something very true, which is, the purpose of spirituality, the reason that we, have a spiritual system is to get back in touch with nature, back in touch with ourselves. And what I found for myself in the beginning was great. And I was learning, and not even just the beginning. It was like from when I first picked my path back up in my early 20s, because I'd practiced on and off from like the age of like 11 or 12 until like 17, 18. And then in my early 20s, I picked it back up. And from that point until maybe 2015 is when I felt myself kind of tapering off. But the last time I feel I really was growing and connected to me and who I am was probably 2014. From 2014 until like through maybe 2016, at that point, for me, I started to find, and I didn't realize this at the time, it was only now when you mentioned that, what about like getting lost in your spirituality, where you're actually getting further away from yourself because you start building yourself around all these other ideas or all these other, your friends or your, people you see on YouTube or in your circle, how they build their own practice, and a little bit of the flavor of, who they are goes into it. I don't know, I guess I started to notice a little bit of kind of like keeping up with the Joneses in a way, like how can I really make sure that I'm growing, where the focus became so much on growing that I lost sight of the true meaning, which is, being in touch with oneself and the surroundings around us.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a danger, and I think it's something that actually lends itself to spiritual burnout, because you're not getting in touch with yourself if you're worrying about what everyone else does. And we do live in a society which is very aesthetic based. We have easy access more than ever to images of what we think people's lives look like and what people's practices look like, and this perfect altar and this perfect spell work and all this thing. And you sometimes is that feeling of, I'm not doing enough, or I'm not doing it right, or I'm not witchy enough, or whatever it is. And it can be a real problem. I've been talking about it for a little while in different ways. Like, people need to really, really rock what it is that makes them tick, because if you don't, you're not in balance with yourself, I guess. And then you're kind of just bleeding out in a way, because you're like, oh, but that though, and that though, and that, and it's kind of like reaching outside of yourself all the time.
Yeah.
And that's not what the purpose of spirituality is meant to be about. It's not meant to be. I mean, I enjoy aesthetics. I'm not going to lie. I enjoy good aesthetics that kind of like inspire me. I tend to prefer the more gothic aesthetics, as people probably realize by now, but probably, she says. But so I appreciate like the gothic altars and things like that. I enjoy a good aesthetic, but on the other side, I've kind of got to the point where I'm like, but spirituality doesn't have to fit this. It doesn't have to look like this. It doesn't have to fit a format, because if it does, it's probably not coming from the heart. It's not coming from the soul, and that lends to burnout, because then you're not feeling what's in front of you or what you're creating, because it's not coming from you. It's coming from what you think it's supposed to be.
Yeah. And I think that everyone, I mean, I know that I enjoy a good aesthetic as well, but then you kind of fall into, you know, the Insta witch, for instance. I'm not sure if I heard you use that term, or if somebody else used that term, or if I just thought it in my head just now, but kind of like, you know, those perfect, you know, you see the images with the filters and it looks just right and it's staged, and all of that. And that's not even just with spirituality, that's with anything. That strive for perfection will burn anything out. I mean, when I was running my business, I mean, I was working so hard, and Joey, you probably can relate to this, you know, because you have to take the pictures, and with it being something that is being marketed, it has to be aesthetically pleasing. It has to be, you know, quote unquote perfect. But when that becomes the only thing that is, you're focusing on, is kind of like the stuff that has to be done, the stuff that needs to be presented to the public, and you don't get to spend that time behind the scenes doing the things that really light up your soul, like that, it all leads to burnout, you know, in your day job. If all you get to do all day is reports and push paper, at some point you're going to get burned out if you don't get to have fun with your coworkers or share your ideas and, you know, that kind of thing. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, for the spiritual business, I recently did the pirate theme for summer.
That was awesome.
The pirate theme is all me, because I gotten to the point where I was working a lot with other people, and I hadn't done something that was just like, I want to do this, I want to create this, I want to play with this for a while. And I was feeling a bit burnt out a little bit. And I was like, what can I do in that moment? And I was like, well, it's been a little bit of a while since you've had a play with a set, with a candle, with an idea, like pushing past what you normally do. So let's play with it. Let's have fun with it. Let's order different scents in and different things like charms and things that will go into it, and have fun with it. And I did, and it was a lot of fun. And that reignites the passion that I have in that situation, because that's why I started doing it. That feeling, that playing with it, that, oh, we can do this and this and this, and oh, that would be cool. And oh, we can try this different thing that we've never tried before. And it brings the excitement back from in, because whilst it's absolutely an honor and a privilege to work with other people's wants and needs for things, and a lot of people give me almost completely free rein anyway, that's still what they require. So it's still like drawing off their energy and their connections to deity and what they want and what they need, because I will basically tap into spiritual messages and what it is what they need.
Yep. So you're taking the messages, creating it's sort of like making a prescription for them. It's not your own, it's channeling something else. So you don't get that personal freedom to play, like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that play is perhaps one of the most underrated and one of the most important parts of spirituality that can actually help us get past the funk, get past the burnout and things, because burnout is and the associated things around it are basically a feeling like drudge, like, oh, like I can't be bothered, or I've had enough, or it's not working. And I think play kind of throws all those things out. It's like, that doesn't matter for now. We're just going to sit in the sandbox and play with it a bit and see what it looks like and see where we end up, or we're going to head out the door and have an adventure, and who knows what will happen. And it's unexpected and against routine a little bit, which I think we all need from time to time. Even the most routine orientated of us, we need to step outside of it sometimes. Mine's kind of a chaos order. I don't have like a 9 to 5 every single day, but I do have a kind of order. So even I need
Mhm.
to get outside of that mindset sometimes, or we burn out. We get
Yeah.
fed up with it.
I think a big thing too, at least this was for me, and I feel like it may not be for everyone, but I feel like it does affect a lot of people, or I feel like it would ring true for a lot of people. When something starts to become an obligation,
Hmm.
that's when the burnout starts to. So for me, like when I first started making YouTube videos, it was fun because I wasn't obligated to anyone. I was making videos and sharing and really excited to meet people. When I started my business, the same thing. I was excited, but it gets to the point where now all of a sudden these things that were once fun now are becoming obligations. And I mean, it's to be expected if that's what you're doing for your work. But when all that exists are the obligations, for me personally, when I'm obligated to somebody or something, I start to become resentful
Mm-hmm.
toward it.
Yeah.
So, and it's a really, like, I've had to catch myself at certain points, like, okay, I need a break from, whatever it is that is an obligation. So I think that too, if someone is experiencing spiritual burnout and they don't really understand why, like, step back and look, is everything too rigid? Are you forcing yourself to have a ritual every full moon? Or are you forcing yourself to do a full, card spread for yourself every month? Are you forcing yourself to do crystal healing or chakra balancing on yourself, once a quarter, where it becomes like, okay, this is what I have to do? It becomes like a chore and less something that is fulfilling.
Yeah, I mean, YouTube has been a bit of a chore lately for a whole host of reasons. Again, I definitely go through periods of ebb and flow, especially with videos. Videos are quite tiring to do.
Yeah, because it's not just the filming and you put it up. Like, there's editing involved, and
well,
you have to think about what you're talking about.
there's getting ready to look,
Yep.
like a swamp rat on camera, and
So you need your whole, like, a makeup team. If you had a makeup team, would
yeah.
it be better? Yeah, makeup and hair.
Well, the hair's a wig, so the hair's pretty quick. Like,
Throw that on.
that's just that thump done. But
Yeah.
makeup team would be nice. But I've had ebbs and flows with YouTube like this all the time I've been on YouTube, and I've been on YouTube consistently since I started. So I haven't had like massive breaks apart from when I moved and things, but I have had times where I've made less videos, like a lot less videos, like one a week or maybe one every 2 weeks, that kind of like slowing right down. And that's been happening recently just because of all the blooming like censorship and stuff that's going on with YouTube. It's disheartening. It's like people are struggling to find the videos now, so people want to hear what you have to say and want to engage with you and stuff, but YouTube is like hiding it from them because it's not.
I've heard about that, and that pisses me off.
Yeah,
because that's not when it was. And I mean, granted, I know that YouTube was at one point an independent entity, and now it's, for the past several years, it's been owned by Google. But I think that I don't like the direction that Google has taken it, taking away the video responses. Way back in, what is that, 2011, 2012, when Google first took over. That was a way to get, first of all, your own videos out there, but then secondly, to connect with others in a manner that was more intimate than a comment under a video.
And you'd see them as well. Like, people will still do VR videos and things, but
you could attach them to the video. Yeah.
And if they do that now, you may never see it.
Yep.
I've had people, firstly, like, messaging me on YouTube is the worst way because YouTube doesn't tell me I have messages, and I forget about the.
Wait, there's still a message feature on YouTube?
You can still
I thought that they did away with that.
No,
oh wow.
you still message people, but finding them is a nightmare. So I always forget that I have like an inbox at YouTube. I'm like, oh yeah, right. And then there's like 20 of them, and I'm like, oh,
my bad.
So that's like the worst way to contact me, by the way. If anyone contacts me on the Messenger on YouTube, you're far better off trying to find me on Facebook. But you don't see it. You don't see those VRs half the time. And then people feel kind of like, well, maybe she didn't like it, or maybe she just doesn't care, or maybe she's an ass, And
maybe she's an ass.
and I'm like, no, I just haven't seen it. Like, and I've legit had people like send me messages like a month later and being like, I'm really, really sorry. Did you hate my video? And I'm like,
what video?
no. You need to tell me, or and YouTube basically stopped the conversation. And I think actually I think it does lend itself to spiritual burnout, especially for those people who can't talk about their spirituality in their everyday, and YouTube is actually like a lifeline for people. So there have been people who are like, oh, I can talk to people, I can go watch videos, I can learn, I can see people who are just like me.
I have friends. I'm not alone. I'm sorry, I'm looking for my other battery for my vape device, and so that I'm listening to you, but I need to charge it because this one's going to die, and I need to. Where is it? I have the Mary Poppins purse of purses. Mm-hmm. It's not even that that big, but it's just like it's an abyss and just a black hole, and stuff falls. Where the hell? There it is. It's right there. It was in my lunchbox. Oh, okay. It's a great place for it. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. No, well, okay. So here's the other thing, and I'm gonna play devil's advocate a minute too.
Sure.
Just because. So I've stepped back, and well, I mean, you know that I deleted like pretty much everyone from my Facebook, not for reasons that were personal to anybody. It was really me going through some stuff and knowing how I get when I go through stuff, and not wanting to basically burn any bridges with anyone who was just in the wrong place at the wrong time when I was in a bad mood. So this whole last 8 months or so has been a very solitary journey. Intentionally, at first unintentionally solitary, but then intentionally solitary. And the one thing that I find interesting is I don't really know how to say what I'm trying to say, which is another weird thing because I've always been really good about expressing my feelings, and I've had some experiences that have caused me kind of to shut that side of myself off recently, which sucks. But there is, I don't know, I guess, what are your thoughts on connecting too much with other people when it comes to spiritual burnout and your spiritual practice? And do you think that there's a time where you connect too much to other people, like not you specifically, but the general?
Oh no, because
that one could
specifically. I need hermit time. It's like
right. So like that one could be too. I guess for me, I found that again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, which was kind of comparing oneself to others. It got to the point where you're being torn in all these different directions, and especially with the YouTube pagan community specifically, there's always these like topics and trends, and there's always kind of like a train to get on, and it'll go for a few months. And for me, that became distracting from the topics that I personally needed to be focusing on for myself internally. And it's the same freaking topics that go around the community like once every year and a half. So it's not like it's new stuff. It's all this recycled bullshit. But I found that being like, well, and people have different perspectives on it as they evolve and as times change. Like the idea of like women born women and feminist witchcraft. The ideas now are much different than they were back in like 2010, just because culture is evolving, and society is evolving, thankfully. But I don't know. It just, instead of jumping on the bandwagon of all of these different topics, and potentially ignoring like really big revelations in your own life, like do you think that there's ever a point that can cause, or maybe not cause, but contribute to spiritual burnout? Because now you're not, really investing yourself in things that you either A, need to be learning, or B, want to be learning, but you're just kind of rehashing the same stuff every 18 months.
I think there is absolutely a risk of that if you follow the trends of YouTube or anything really to do with spirituality too closely. I think it's interesting because for me, I tend to listen to what I call like finger on the witch pulse. So that to me is like feeling what the energies are in the world around me and kind of what there is going on with me. And then I'll talk about that in a video or whatever. And for a long time now, in more recent times anyway, I've been ignoring the trends on YouTube.
That's good. Or even bye train.
Yeah. Or I've been standing against it because there are certain trends that they rub me the wrong way. I don't like it. There's been a trend lately to get on board with the idea of what YouTube wants in order to sell you as much as possible. So, you have to stick to like the 10-15 minute max kind of videos, and then it's a very stylized background. It's very beauty blogger style, and I can't stand it. I can't. I'm sorry. But no.
That shit pisses me off. And I can say this now because, as the phrase goes, I don't have a dog in the fight. Because I'm not making videos. I'm not really connected to anyone on Facebook. I'm following and followed by a few on Instagram. When that authenticity is lost and it becomes this commercialized, and that's kind of the feeling that I had gotten the last 2 years, is that YouTube was starting to become more commercialized. I would be in groups like groups on Facebook. My daughter's home. Oh man, please don't come in. Oh no. I mean, my daughter can come in. Like, you can come in the house, but I hope that my partner's parents don't come in. Oh Jesus. Come on in. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
She's going to talk to me. I know it. And I don't want to be rude, like to you guys. Hey, Zoe, I'm doing the interview right now, okay? Nozomi? Guys, I'm live and on air. Okay, can you play in your room for a little bit? You can go outside, yeah. I'm on air right now. Yeah, like live on the internet. I'm doing my oh, you haven't been home yet. I left you a message on the answering machine that I have an interview tonight that I'm doing. I'll talk to you about later because I'm like live right now. No. So, all right. Stellar today. Good. Good. All right. Yeah, go see if Mariana wants to play maybe, but I would like for you to check in an hour. Okay, honey? Okay. Yeah, so she was out to, well, I already told you before I think we went live, she was out to dinner with her grandparents tonight because she had off school, and I didn't want to take off of, well, I don't want to waste my PTO taking off of work because we just stayed home the other week. She messed up her ankle, so I had to do that. But, yeah, they're outside. And my Jonathan barks anytime like a leaf blows across the lawn. Come here, Jonathan. Come here. Lay down. Lay down. Jonathan. Plus, he loves Nathan's mom. So he's probably really depressed right now that they're not taking him home. Do you want to go live over there? He's such a dork. All right. No, it irritates me. I'm going to jump right back into it. It irritates me because I would see like on these Facebook groups that I was in, like, how do I get more viewers? How do I get more subscribers? And for me, there's a dissonance there for me, because if someone is especially when it comes to spirituality, I guess there's a dissonance there because it feels like there's a lack of humility when the intention is, I'm doing this for views, I'm doing this for subscribers. If you're a beauty blogger, like, it makes sense you're doing it for views and subscribers. Like, that's like kind of the atmosphere and the energy of that. But spirituality, like, if you think of spirituality plus wanting lots of viewers and followers, that turns into cults. Like, that's what a cult is. So it always rubbed me the wrong way when people would really make it a point that their intention would be only for views. But then even further, which this was really upsetting to me, is I would see people give advice. Oh, you want to connect with them and comment on their stuff so that they engage with you more. So it was basically this feeling of interact with them because it suits your needs. So there are these ulterior motives behind these connections. When for me, like I want solid and genuine connections, not climbing the ladder, social climber kind of connections. But so that always kind of grossed me out a little bit.
It does. And there's the other side to it, which is when you're following that kind of format, there's kind of like this distaste for videos which are not happy and upbeat and positive and delivering that kind of message. And I'm all for having those kinds of videos, but I think when you're talking about spirituality, you also need the raw ones. You need the difficult ones. You need the ones that talk about things which aren't comfortable to talk about, which touch on points which, this hurt at some point, or maybe I cry in this video. And if you don't feel you have the freedom to do that when you're talking about spirituality, there's a problem there, because if
half of your soul then is missing, because that's the other part.
And so when I don't mind it in my beauty blogger style, because they're talking about makeup and you can take it or leave it.
You don't want their mascara to run.
But you can have fun with makeup, you can have silly fun with makeup, and it's not gonna
because it's superficial, it's not like a deep thing.
And I mean, you can have a serious conversation about makeup if you like when people are doing it for like reasons of anxiety and they're helping themselves out and whatnot, but it's not the same ballpark as spirituality, which covers every area of life, and people who have been through hellish experiences, horrors people have been through, and spirituality has given them a little piece of themselves back, a little piece at a time, and help them to grow and help them to reclaim themselves and help them to become more comfortable in their skin and grow stronger. And those are the stories that people need to hear. They're not there to see 10 minutes of a beauty style blogger with a salt lamp in the background and hi all the way through. People need the deep stuff as well. And I don't hate the fun videos, because I'll do fun, stupid videos too, because there's a balance, there's, medicine and laughter, but we need both. We need that balance. And I think because YouTube is becoming completely commercialized, because it's all about ad revenue now, it's all about the advertisers, it's not about the creators, it's not about fun new stuff. You can't discover stuff on YouTube hardly at all anymore because of all the algorithms and stuff they put in. Like discovering random stuff like you used to, nigh on impossible now. So you can't like fall across interesting different creators by accident. You can have 20 BuzzFeed things that are paid by ad revenue. You can have the blooming what are they called, the guy that had the controversy and his brother recently, whose names have completely gone out of my head. Jake Paul and his brother. You can get them in your feed as if you wanted them. But falling over interesting, exciting spiritual channels is a real challenge now, like really hard. And it's basically going on word of mouth a lot more. And you have to go find them and go find the people who are talking about things. And I mean, I've had people who've been like, I've just found you. And I'm like, I've been here a while. I'm like, I didn't
welcome
know about you. I'm like, welcome to my stage. Daft videos to the left, more serious videos to the right. But and I think this atmosphere, it does contribute to the burnout, because people are just seeing those 10-minute videos of happy la la, thinking spirituality should be that, and it's not. It's so much more than just that. And
I always think though that it's because, and that'll also go on a whole other rant about I don't want to say always. No, I do always. When people start bringing out like the whole what do they call them? The love and lighters. I would be, I think, considered a love and lighter. But the thing that is a huge misconception that I feel like I'm constantly having to correct is that, I mean, granted, are there people who they only practice good, like they're only thinking of good thoughts, and anything that's bad they'll push it under the rug? Like, yes, like those people do exist, but for me, on my channel, I mean, granted, there are videos on my channel that were a little bit more raw, as you would say, or they would be kind of like a, I don't know, hold up a mirror and look at this kind of difficult message. But for the most part, I wanted my content to be helpful for people, and I wanted to share my experiences. But there are certain experiences, like the things I've gone through in the last couple of years, that like the depth of those, I don't care to share those. Not because I'm ignoring them, but because, I mean, frankly, it's somebody else's business.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess the thing that always upsets me about people kind of shitting on like the Love and Lighters is that there's this perception that it's all like rainbows and unicorns. But for somebody like me, like that hard work is done. It's just not done in front of other people. And when I think of positive thinking, I'm not thinking like, oh, this bad thing that happened, it doesn't exist, I'm going to pretend it doesn't exist. Instead, for me, positive thinking is, okay, this really shitty experience happened. I can sit here and wallow in it and allow it to create a victim. Or I can say, what about this experience can I take and learn from? How can I grow from this experience? And so while you're still working through the mud and the shit, you are viewing it as an opportunity for growth, which is a positive way of viewing it. It's just kind of looking at it more optimistically than pessimistically. And yeah, so I wanted to throw that out there because I know that it's one of those 18-month things, the cycle, the train, where it's like the dark versus light, the real witch versus the not real witch. And so I just want to clarify, like, both can exist. I think it's kind of shitty to kind of judge somebody strictly on and like how they view the world, like their entire mindset based on the little bit that you see, because you and I both know a YouTube video is what, 10, 15 minutes, 45 if you're me, out of somebody's entire life, out of their entire day.
Yeah.
So you don't know what else, you know, they're doing or how they think. And I think that there's definitely value in the getting down and dirty with the bullshit that exists. And there's value in viewing those experiences with more of a positive outlook when you can, which it's really fucking hard to do sometimes, because sometimes you just want to, you know, wring someone's neck or something, or crawl into a hole and die. But I don't know. So I wanted to throw that out there too.
It's really important, because I think the way that I see what you're talking about in the taking the shit and where you put your focus, I've been trying to do it myself. It's like looking at how we alchemize what we're given. Like, what can I like burn away from the situation so I'm not focusing on all the funk that's underneath it. I'm not getting trapped in a place of like I'm poisoning myself and not taking the lesson.
Right.
And then how can I like burn off that and still not deny this lesson, but use it to elevate and to better understand myself, and then better understand the world around me, and then kind of look at what I am engaging with and putting out there. And I think that's really important. I mean, I struggle with the idea of like the happy, lighter side of things, because I naturally gravitate towards a more serious conversation. I'm probably more comfortable in quote unquote dark spaces. And it's not necessarily about being emo or, you know, weighed down or like, I am so edgy and dark.
How do you say that? Like that, what is it, Smeagol from Lord of the Rings?
Precious. No. Oh,
that's funny.
Because I can be silly, I can be stupid, I can be singing on video, just like be on the lighter side of things, just like anyone else. But I feel the need for the balance. And I think when we lean too far one way or the other, that's burnout territory again. It's also really dangerous, like putting people in these boxes, like this is a good witch, this is a bad witch, this is a light witch, this is a dark. Come on. People are multifaceted, deep, layered, changeable, emotional creatures. We don't fit in boxes. as hard as people keep trying. And the real witch thing drives me nuts. It drives me nuts.
I know. As it does I. Is that even proper? Is that as it
No.
does I?
Yeah.
I mean, I know it makes sense, but is it correct?
As do I.
This is how often, like, I used to speak all the time, and I felt I had a really good handle on expressing myself. And now it's like that skill has just poof, it's gone. Where did it go? I have no idea.
It gets like that when you don't do videos for a while there, and you're just used to you speaking yourself.
Well, I've also haven't been talking about my emotions because I haven't. I mean, I've been accessing my emotions, but one of the lessons that I learned in the last year and a half or so is that I used to talk about my emotions and others' emotions, like in depth, like good friends. Like we would just sit there and kind of dissect like how we were feeling, why we were feeling that way, and what the cause was. And I felt like that was very healthy. I wish that I still had that outlet, but it pushed a couple of my loved ones away from me. So as a defense mechanism to protect those relationships, I sort of just shut it off and went the complete opposite way that I always said, don't do that. Like, don't compartmentalize things, don't shove shit in boxes. And there it is, buried in these boxes. And now I've like locked them and thrown away the key, and I don't know where the hell I put it. So I'm trying to get back in to do it, but in a more productive way that isn't overwhelming to others, because when you have the ability to express yourself and how you're feeling, and really, I mean, I have a pretty good handle on who I am and what makes me tick. And I think for some people who don't have that, it can be a little overwhelming because, I'm speaking a million miles an hour, and they're still processing, wait, but how do I feel? I don't actually know because I don't practice with that a lot. So yeah, I kind of turned it off for a bit.
I mean, I did too. I mean, coming out of trauma and things, I learned to completely turn my emotions like right off, completely and utterly off. It was a defense mechanism of a survivor. Because if I dealt with it all at once, I probably wouldn't still be here because I couldn't cope. So I went through a process of turning my emotions off completely. And I after after everything blew up, it was probably a couple of years before I was slowly letting myself feel properly again. Because the problem with it when you turn it right off is if you switch it right back on and it all
and you drown.
And you drown again. So that's no good. So it's kind of like siphoning off little parts of it and dealing with little things and allowing little things to emotionally get to you again. This is something that, like, I always stand against people who are really, really anti, say, like video games. So I understand that there can be problems with video games for anybody watching, but basically I will tell people who say that, I'm like, well, Warcraft saved my life.
Yeah, Sims for me.
Because I needed something to take myself out of myself.
Yeah.
And that's what did it. And that's what engaged me at that time. And I even had the occasional emotional response to some of the storyline, which I needed to do. And then there were other little things that just gradually pulled out little bits of the emotional start up again. And slowly, bit by bit by bit. And it's still not perfect, but, the emotions started to come back, and then we dealt with little things bit by bit by bit. We're still doing it. So
I was always so envious of people who could do that, where they could. My mom's like that. She was able just to like turn her emotions off. I remember I was going through my first breakup when I was 16, and it just crushed me. I couldn't stop crying. I've felt just so depressed. I didn't want to do anything. And I had seen her go through 2 divorces. I'd seen her go through breakups, and I was like, how do you do it? And she said, I turn off my emotions. And I was like, teach me how to do that. And I'm grateful that I never learned how to, on one side, but there's still another side that'd be like, damn, it would be good not to feel sometimes.
It's a very dangerous thing, to be honest. I didn't mean to learn how to do it. It was just kind of something of circumstance. I had to make it stop, otherwise it was just going to be too much. But it can be really dangerous because you can slip into that sometimes without realizing you're doing it, and you have to be like, nope, no,
Mm-hmm.
no, it's not the appropriate time to be doing that, just because it's a little bit hard right now, more than it might be, you know. Breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Learn to deal with the emotional responses to things without completely shutting down, because it's not,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah,
not
because otherwise you can
the way to
slip
do
into
it.
almost like a dependency on that
Yeah,
switch. That makes
yeah.
sense.
And spirituality is the hard times as well as
Mm-hmm.
the lighter times, and we have to realize that we can cope, we can manage, and we can get through it. And it's just, and again, we learn about ourselves in those scenarios. We learn about who we are, and how we interact with the world around us and other people. So
Mm-hmm.
those are important lessons not to block out by turning everything off.
Since I cannot see what battery my phone is at, it was full when we started, but I'm sure that this sucks it up. I'm going to plug it in just in case, because I can't see the bar.
We're approaching about time anyway, because
Okay.
we're on about the 50-minute mark. So
All right.
we're approaching about time. It's been 50 minutes already.
That's crazy. This has been really fun. This is, it's weird how, well, this doesn't feel like I'm live, and I'm probably going to have a mini like anxiety attack when I realize that it's actually posted somewhere on YouTube. Just because you've seen me probably make live videos, and then I'm like, I'm going to keep it up, and then I delete it. I actually have extreme, which is weird. Like if you go back and look at my videos that I've made over the years, that I've been on YouTube, there's not doing it for so long. Plus, I think kind of a change maybe in my chemistry, my makeup. There's a bit of stage fright now, which it was there when I very first started making videos, but I don't know. I lost a lot of confidence in the recent experiences that I've had, so I'm working on getting that back. And that, that also plays a role into why I pulled way back, just especially from people. And then with that, my spiritual practice as well, which the irony there is you probably should stick around with it if I want to build the confidence.
I think it's easy to get into that mind space really easily, though, especially with things like spirituality. Like, we're facing these constant cycles of, this is what you're supposed to do, this is what you're supposed to talk about, this is what your video is supposed to look like. And it can cause anxiety when you're like, well, I don't want my videos to look like that. I don't want to talk about those things, and I'm going to step outside of it. And when you haven't been doing, or aren't in the regular habit of doing something, it's kind of like that of getting back in it. When I started making videos again a little bit more regularly, at first it was like, oh God, yeah, I've forgotten how we do this. How do we do this? And breathe and start. Okay, breathe and start. And it can be unnerving. It's when we get out of the habit of reaching inside ourselves, and just like, because basically it's vulnerability. When we talk about ourselves and our spirituality, like we are doing, there is a vulnerableness to it, which is worth bearing in mind when people talking about, well, there should be a vulnerability in it anyway. It's that's
right,
what it's supposed to be, when it's not a show. So
I think that actually helped me get to, I think that may be one of the things I'm struggling with. I used to be, like Chris would say, I was fiercely vulnerable. I have trouble being vulnerable now, and I think, it has to do with some of the stuff that I experienced, but I think that that's probably it. Just, there used to be comfort there. I was okay with it. It was cathartic in a way. And now it's like, well, I was vulnerable and I got burned. So I won't make that same mistake again. So I'd like to get back to the me I was like in 2014, 2015.
Well,
but
if I was advising, which I'm always hesitant to do, but I would say take the best parts of 2014 and take the best parts of now and go forward. Because it's easy to look back at who we were sometimes with rose-tinted glasses and forget about that it wasn't as easy as we think it was. But, having the goal to want to be vulnerable, the goal to want to be open is a beautiful thing. I think that's a worthwhile endeavor. And it's also worth balancing so you're not fully invulnerable too much in the moment where it's just, again, bleeding out, and it's non-stop. It's finding, again, balance, I think. So to let it out in little steps, little increments, little knocking the microphone over. Professionalism, there you go. So for me, it's just like little bit by little bit by little bit, and it's little moments, I think, moments of vulnerability, and just engaging with those moments as they come.
Yeah, that's good advice. I will try to do that. Well, thank you so much for having me on and for thinking of me. When you messaged me, I was like, oh, me? Okay.
No, so it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming.
And this was actually the first time I think that you and I have gotten to talk. I don't think we've ever talked like this before.
No.
Not even with, did we ever do like a group, like hang out with Chris or anything?
Just the tea and Tara.
Was it one? Oh, that. Yeah. But not like because we used to, and you probably do with Chris, where you're not on air, you're just video chatting and like shooting the shit. Yeah. So this is nice. Thank you for having me.
You are most welcome, and you're always welcome to come hang out offline as well. So if you ever, feel the need, you're more than welcome.
Also, I forgot about the time difference. You need to go to bed too. I'm so sorry.
That's all right. He's in the other room doing a consult anyway, so it's absolutely fine. So thank you guys for joining me today. I'm going to stop the recording now, and I'll see you guys soon.
Bye.